You're very welcome back to the show now. Do you ever wonder at the start of a new year what the next 12 months holds for you? Will it be a year to remember? Or, like last year, maybe a year to forget? Well, my next guest is a psychic astrologer who made headlines last year as she claims she foresaw the coronavirus pandemic. And she joins us now to tell us her predictions for 2021. Jessica Adams, you're very welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Now, you're all the way in the other side of the world at the moment in Tasmania. I mean, Tasmania has a completely different scene to Ireland now at the moment when it comes to COVID-19. Tell us what's it like for you now?
Okay, so we were in terrible trouble this time last year, and we were in a state of emergency, so at home for about 3 or 4 months, which you can just imagine drove everybody slightly potty. But we have now eliminated the virus, so we're almost on our way to 4 months of 0 cases and 0 deaths, so we are 0 COVID.
Oh my God, we're so jealous over here because of that. Because last year was a grim year. You claim to have foreseen the coronavirus pandemic. But what I'm interested in first is, I know you're an astrologer and I'm familiar with that term, but a psychic astrologer is something I'm not quite sure about. Explain what that is.
So I work with different methods. I combine astrology with what's called scrying, which is gazing into bowls of water to see what comes my way. And I also have dreams. So if I have a dream about the future, I'll look at the astrology, see what backs up the dream.
Yeah, and the astrology is quite scientific. I've had my star chart done a couple of times over the years, and it's very, very specific, isn't it? I mean, it's not like we read in the newspaper, Aries, Virgo, and there's a little paragraph about everyone. Everyone's individual horoscope can be quite different. Can you explain to us how that actually works?
Yeah, so it's almost like a snapshot of you as a baby at the moment that they cut the cord. If we could zoom upwards towards the heavens and look over your head, we are reconstructing that pattern of the stars as they looked and the planets as they looked when you were born and they cut the cord. So this is a horoscope, and from that we can tell you your past, your present, and your potential future.
Yeah, and I know when I got mine done, I was 1:20 in the afternoon of the 18th of August 1977. So I have a very particular snapshot that somebody who was born perhaps 2 hours later would not have on that same day.
Yes, that's right. There would be a big difference between you and a baby who was born 2 hours along.
Yeah, and how does that work? In what way do the planets influence that?
They don't really influence anything. We use them as a timing device. They're much more like a clock or a calendar telling you a kind of alternative time. Time is made up anyway. We work with a very strange kind of time, but it's worked for about 2,000 years and counting, which is probably why it's still going strong.
But I'm still quite confused. So how do you tell someone's horoscope then by that, and how does it change daily? And that's the sort of thing I find interesting.
There's really no cause or effect with astrology because the planets, have less gravitational pull on you at the moment that you're born than the midwife does. But we use the sun and the moon for timing, we always have. And so really what we're doing with astrology is using a very old-fashioned kind of time that they work with at Stonehenge. And what's unusual about our kind of time is that we say it is possible to see the future because history always repeats.
Really? History always repeats. How can you tell that?
Well, for example, with this terrible virus that we're all dealing with now, this is the same cycle that we've seen with the Black Death, with the plague in the 1660s, same cycle as the Spanish flu, as HIV/AIDS, and here it comes round again. So unfortunately, we know it's here again. It's the same thing. Fortunately, we also know what to do.
Yeah, but I know, before I think you mentioned that you didn't think there was going to be a vaccine. We do have several vaccines rolled out now, so it's not that set in stone, is it? What you can predict?
The issue with vaccines, which I've looked at, I would love there to be a silver bullet vaccine, a very simple solution to a very complicated problem. But what we're seeing is lots of attempts at a vaccine or the vaccine, but nothing that really fits what I think most people want from a vaccine.
So one size cures all, but hopefully the one we have is working well at the moment for everyone who does need it. Now, um, I'm a little bit skeptical of certain things, like when it comes to psychic mediums and things like that. But how do you react to people like me? I'm open-minded mostly about most things, but sometimes I do think we have to take these things with a pinch of salt. And sometimes I think a lot of people are open to perhaps a bit of manipulation when it comes to things like this. What's your opinion of people who don't believe? What do you say to them?
Oh, skeptics are really good for our profession. So skeptics like you are very welcome, because our profession, unfortunately, is open to problems the same as any career, I guess. And so there are people who are definitely not the real thing, and we rely on skeptics to call them out. But there are some also brilliant, sincere and excellent mediums and psychics, particularly in Ireland, I have to say, who are well worth your time.
Now, we do have quite the tradition here of mysticism, going back to the ancient Gaelic Celts. We had our seers. I mean, it's a very strong tradition. Is there something in the Celtic blood that promotes that?
It is interesting. The Irish people that I've known, I worked with a charity called War Child in Dublin for a time, and every single person organised their lives around their intuition because it helped children in war zones. And they weren't psychics and they weren't mediums, but all the Irish people that I met were extraordinarily intuitive. Their sixth sense was really sharp. And I'm not sure where that comes from, but I know that it's really big in Irish history and also in Irish culture.
Yeah, my grandmother used to say the O's and the Maxi, like if you're an O'Donnell or a McCarthy or something like that, it was in your blood that you had some sort of sixth sense or ability like that. Now, when it comes to 2021, is there anything that you have seen either in the stars or anything that you can tell us that may or may not happen?
2021 is really the beginning of local life and local living. We're so used to globalization, okay, and everything being quite American, for example. Even here in Australia, it's like that. What's going to happen in 2021 is a big push back towards the local scene, local holidays. We're also going to see the beginning of the end of the climate emergency for all sorts of reasons. One of them is seaweed. Believe it or not, I'm seeing that as a psychic. We're going to see a boom in seaweed, and seaweed will help reduce the climate emergency.
Do you know how seaweed is going to help do that? Any idea? You just see this when you're scrying or something.
Yeah, seaweed's going to boom. Something that we never even think about when we go swimming, but we're going to see this huge advance in the growth of seaweed and understanding that seaweed can help trap carbon emission, but we can also feed seaweed to cows, and that will reduce their gas problem, which is also part of our climate emergency. So funny things like that for you as a psychic, or me as a psychic, turn up.
Yeah, and like, what can we expect when it comes to, obviously the US influences us here in Ireland, of course, around the world very strongly. You had Donald Trump, the last election. You didn't get it quite right because Donald Trump had 2 times of birth, as we alluded to earlier on. So what can we expect from the Joe Biden presidency? Do you think it will have any influence, positive influence on us here in Ireland?
Yes, it's going to be big because Robin Hood was always going to be the American president. Even before we knew who was running, it was going to be somebody giving back to the poor and taking from the rich. So Biden is going to come in swinging on Wednesday, and he's going to launch initiatives that will level the playing field, okay, all those billionaires. But also the tax situation with Ireland and America is going to change drastically over the next 5 or 6 years. In general, we're going to see a levelling up, and we're also going to see arrests for money laundering. So there will be a lot of assets seized right around the world that will help that transfer of money.
All right, so maybe a more honest world is lying ahead for us all.
Yes, it's the biggest financial revolution since the war, actually.
Oh.
And it's coming from a redistribution of wealth away from greed and away from the billionaires and the multi-billionaires back to the people who need it.
And any other big life events that will be happening over the next year, over 2021, what can we expect?
Just as life is going local, it's also going much more towards the group. And we're already seeing that with these, I don't know if you've seen them on TikTok, the sea shanties have really taken off. We're going to see lots more of that technology being used to help bring people together, even total strangers together. We're going to see, what I'm seeing is a #1 hit that's like a sea shanty for charity. It'll be huge and it will involve thousands of people. And if you're on Zoom as we are now, you're going to experience Zoom in a circular way. So it used to be square, all those little boxes, and we're going to see Zoom in the round.
Wow, they're quite specific and strange predictions, actually, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they're out of the box. I mean, I've got a few, but they're the ones that I think stand out for me.
Anything exciting? Is anything exciting going to happen to me in the next 12 months? Can you predict, or am I just plodding along as always?
I'm picking you. I don't know anything about you, in all honesty. I haven't looked you up on Google at all, but I can see you clairvoyantly with a pair of wellies on and horses. So I don't know if you're already that way inclined, but I can see you in wellies having a lovely time with a horse.
Well, I don't exactly know how that fits into my life. If anyone who knows me hears that, they'll roar laughing, because the last time I was on a horse, I was 12 years old and I was thrown and I never got on one since. But you never know. I might always get back on the horse. There you go.
Okay, I hope so.
Thank you so much for joining us today from all the way across the world in Tasmania. It's been lovely talking to you.
You too. Thank you.
Now time for a quick break, but when we come back, Tina, you had some interesting problems sent in.
I certainly did. Elaine, what do you do when your man prefers playing his online games than playing with you? And would you be prepared to hand over your life savings on the off chance of love? I don't think so. See you after 3.